Hey there, welcome. My name is Lou Diamond. At this establishment and in my book, Speak Easy, I put together the tips, tricks, techniques, blends, mixtures, and concoctions that you need to make more of your conversations great. Whether you're a professional looking to grow your business, a leader looking to connect to your people, or an individual looking to grow your own personal connections, the lessons you'll learn in Speak Easy will help you connect, engage, and win in all of your conversations. Head on over to speakeasybook.com and order yourself a print, digital, or audio copy. Speak Easy. Connect with every conversation. Cheers.
You look down, they know you're lying. And up, they know you don't know the truth. Don't use 7 words when 4 will do. Don't shift your weight. Look always at your mark, but don't stare. Be specific, but not memorable. Be funny, but don't make him laugh. He's got to like you, then forget you the moment you've left his side. And for God's sakes, whatever you do, don't, under any circumstances, listen to Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
Would you like to learn from those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level? Best-selling author of Speak Easy and master connector Lou Diamond is here to connect you to some of the most inspiring and amazing people on this planet. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to a spectacular, fantabulous, absolutely off-the-charts episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you with the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. Today on Thrive Loud, we have a special episode. We have a special guest, one of the most sought-after business coaches and keynote speakers in the world. He's helped dozens of businesses. He's an extraordinary coach, even helping entrepreneurs and executives prep for Shark Tank, which even I had a chance to help with in one instance, which was pretty cool. He is the author of Easier, 60 Ways to Make Your Work Life Work for You. If you're a dedicated Thrive Loud listeners, you would know that because he was a guest on this program. But today, in a special mashup episode, combining the brilliance of 2 amazing books, Speak Easy and Easier, into what we've aptly named this episode, Speak Easier. Thrive Loud listeners, I bring you my very good friend and soon to be yours, Chris Westfall. There he is. Deep in reading.
Hey.
Oh my goodness. How are you, my friend?
I am well. Great to see you again, Lou.
Great to have you. First, wait, hold on. I just noticed what happened to your arm, your hand. I saw.
Oh, yes. This is. I had a biking accident. I was on a trail and I was coming around a corner, hit a patch of sand. The bike went out from underneath me in a second. And next thing I knew, I was on the ground, grateful that I was wearing a helmet, broke my fall with this and thought I broke my wrist.
Ooh.
But I ended up having x-rays. It's just a sprain. So this is just to kind of give me a little bit of support.
The viewers will see he's all bandaged up. Listeners will need to know that he's tougher than nails, but he's okay. He's just, they can say that you're wearing like this really heavy metal slings. It's a wrap on his arm.
Yes, it's just a wrap, just a little bit of support. That's all.
Just the support. So Chris, first of all, welcome back to Thrive Loud. So excited to have you here.
Great to be here.
I'm excited for multiple reasons. I'm going to give you the 3 that are at the top of my head. 1, I get to chat with you because you and I always have a lot of fun. 2, I got the opportunity to see you give a testimonial that might be the greatest one I've ever seen in my life. And I'm still honored and thrilled about that. But more specifically, I'm excited because today, as you hold up mine and I'll hold up yours, we're doing a little bit of a book mashup here, listeners. We are literally Speak Easy and Easier. This is Chris's book. That's my book. And there are some great concepts in both of these that you as the listeners are going to value. And we're going to just mash it all together. We're going to talk about some of that. So to help people get up to speed, the way we do this best is we're going to do a little rewind here and bring our listeners up here. Nobody can do this better than you. Chris, explain to our lovely listening audience what Easier is all about.
Easier is the thing that everyone wants in their lives right now. I mean, I hope that doesn't sound too grand, but there's a lot of frustration out there and life can be difficult. But there's a way to show up inside of any circumstance. And yes, I'm saying any circumstance that makes things easier. even when life isn't easy. Now, I want to be very careful. I'm not saying that life is easy. No, life is difficult. And in fact, inside of Easier, you will read a story about some real difficulties and challenges. But there's a way to show up that makes life easier. And that's really at the centerpiece of this book. This book is a business fable. So it's a story. It's a story of a client and a coach. And the client hires the coach to find what's next in his life. He's frustrated in his career. He's trying to find out how to make a greater contribution at work, or maybe he needs to leave. Maybe he needs to start his own business. Little does he know he's about to be fired in just 5 days. So from this ultimate career difficulty, a conversation unfolds that leads from frustration to transformation. So the conversation is really at the center of Easier and also at the center of Speak Easy.
So, and by the way, perfect summary. And the listeners need to understand, by the way, I just caught this on. He has made both Speak Easy and Easier, as we've held up the book covers here in this video thing, have a green hue to them. So what did Chris do in the background? I'm showing this back on to feature this. The entire room he's got with the green lighting going on here. Is he on brand or what? You just got it going on, don't you? You know how to keep that up.
You know, I thought it would be worth it to buy these $11 light bulbs so that I could
do this. That's amazing.
I mean, you know, I could do different things, and you know, there's different choices if we wanted to go.
So let's get back on track here, because I love what you said here. This is true. Speak Easy is about connecting with every conversation, and these conversations that you have highlighted in Easier help to navigate what you need to bring to the table, how you need to be, and this is the important part, how to make your work for you. And I think that's such a great taking control. When I read Easier, I love the story setting that you had. And by the way, you're an excellent writer. You tell a wonderful story.
Thank you, man. That means a lot. Thank you.
And I also know that our listeners who are going to look at both of these books and understand it, there's something really very simple about these lessons that you have. But I can tell that this came from many years sitting in the seat that you're in as a spectacular listener and a coach, from observing your clients, people you've worked with, those in the industry, have to go through a lot of these transformational moments, and knowing how important it is to prepare yourself and the things you need to do, the inner work, so that you can have better conversations to make things easier in just on getting your life on track, your work life on track.
Yeah, it's really about helping people to show up differently. And, you know, how you show up is what's creating the world around you. And if you show up prepared to have powerful conversations, as you talk about in Speak Easy, if when you show up in a different way, you can create new possibilities for yourself, new possibilities for your career, for your relationships. And, you know, Lou, as I was looking at Speak Easy and looking particularly at the 7 C's that you talk about, these, you know, kind of this platform to help people prepare for these what I really appreciated the insights that you had to share. And for me, in my book, what I wanted to give an example of is what powerful conversations can look like, and what they can really do. And when I say powerful conversations, I'm talking about a conversation that takes you from frustration into transformation, that helps you to be different than when the conversation began. And that's at the centerpiece of Easier, because again, it's a story about some pretty amazing difficulties that both of these men go through in the course of the story. And for readers, it's a narrative. It's an opportunity to observe what the conversation looks like and to observe the pieces and parts so that you can see on your own terms what that transformation might look like for you. Yeah. And that's really what I think is at the centerpiece of Easier for me. I mean, I wrote it, Lou, like a YouTube video almost. I mean, I wanted people to observe it. I wanted people to see it. You know, I mean, I've watched YouTube videos that have helped me to make changes around the house and change things about my car and stuff like that. And there wasn't somebody saying, here's what you need to do, 1, 2, and 3. It was someone just doing it. I watched it and I learned by observation. And hopefully that's what's at the centerpiece of Easier, is an opportunity to observe and to meet life on your own terms based on a new perspective.
Easier's been out for a bit, and you've
Little bit.
not only had an opportunity to market it, talk about it, be on other programs and see it, but also a lot of people have had a chance to read it. Talk to me about some of the feedback and from clients, from friends, well, not from loved ones, because we know that they're only going to say nice things, but things that surprised you when that book connected with them, certain messages that resonated that only you would be like, oh my goodness, wow, that wasn't something that I thought would actually connect with someone.
First of all, everyone's feedback is different and unique because everyone experiences the book in their own way. There is a part of the book that talks about a key theme, and it's this idea that the universe has your back. And that may sound like a ridiculous statement. You may feel like the universe has stabbed you in the back. I don't know. Sometimes I do. But when we stop and we think about it, there is something going on that's making the waves hit the shore, and that's turning acorns into oak trees, and that's allowing me to digest my food. And that's not just, enzymes and photosynthesis and the law of gravity. That what I'm trying to say is that there are forces going on around us that are making the waves hit the shore. That are creating this world that we live in, the opportunities that are all around us that happen without our effort. And when we recognize that, for example, when we're out in the ocean, we don't have to do anything to make the waves come to us. I mean,
well, I like that.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
And it kind of takes the burden off of us. If we see this, if you see what I'm talking about, we don't have to be like Atlas trying to lift the world all by ourselves. And if people are listening or watching and they're thinking, if it's got to be, it's up to me. I would just say, let me stop you, Gunga Din, because it's not all up to you. You don't have to lift the whole world by yourself.
There is, and this is one of the connections that I hit. There is a letting go part that we need to kind of take on as it relates to Easier. And I don't know why for so long and for so many years, and maybe it's more of a generational thing, that we felt there was the sense of control or things we had to work in a certain way or have to literally have that grasp on. And whether it's in every single movie or book you've ever read, the importance of letting go and how valuable that is, it hasn't resonated as much today. That actually was something that connected with me as I was thinking about how Speak Easy and Easier connect. And there is this line here that is about, you kind of have to let things certainly go in a certain type of flow. You have to kind of play them out in a certain way. And there is an extemporaneous nature to every conversation. There's an extemporaneous nature to everyone's work career. And I was drawing those parallels together saying, oh, wow, this is really cool. What Chris has nailed on in Easier so much is that there are really things that you can do on how you can approach to make it a lot easier. And a lot of what I tried to get in Speak Easy is how you would bring yourself into every conversation in a certain way that's going to make the conversation easier. And hence the Speak Easy component married there. So obviously for the listeners, we had too much fun with naming this episode, but this was a really natural connection, just as you and I have had these connections. But I also carried over that I have an easy way about myself, and I would argue you are exactly the same way. Do people say that about you, Chris? Because that is a characteristic of yours.
I certainly hope that they do. But one of the things that people say to me, and I think that they say this to you too, is that I'm a good listener.
Yeah.
And and I always say, I talk for a living, but listening is very important. and I think that was one of the key takeaways for me inside of Speak Easy. I mean, I'm reminded of the story that you wrote about Jasmine, who was a partner of yours, and she was sick.
Yeah.
And she had this huge presentation the next day, and she was too sick to do it. So she gave you all of her notes. And it was like a line by line breakdown, minute by minute, of what each PowerPoint slide, who was going to be in the room. She gave you like this dossier of details. But here's the takeaway, and here's what I really loved about the story is you had all this preparation, but you took the preparation and you turned it into a conversation.
Yeah.
And so there was this element of script and improv. It just like these conversations, just like any conversation, you have your show flow, you have the ideas that you'd like to get across, but Lou, what you know and understand, and what I see you sharing with your clients, and what you share with me is this deep understanding that we can figure things out moment to moment. And that's not just because you and I are professional speakers or we're superheroes or something like that. This is a human characteristic, and we have the ability to step into conversations, and having a book like Speak Easy can help you to be prepared for that. And I'd like to think that Easier can as well, to help you to show up differently and access some new possibilities. That's what I think really, I mean, if you're going to expand any aspect of your life, that expansion is going to come from seeing and seizing those possibilities.
I love that. And Jasmine, whose name was changed to protect
the
innocent, has similar initials in the thing, but still good colleagues with this person. That the summary for the readers that'll get this. She was sick. She needed help. She provided a ridiculous amount of notes. I will never in my life forget the stack of information that was there. But what I've also noticed is, and one of the arts of what made her such an incredible communicator, is that she was somebody that needed that information as support to provide her with an understanding of those in the room. As she once explained to me, that she was a literary learner. She needed to read or write information down to capture that information. And then that would enable her to funnel that into better conversations that she could have and better presentations. I'm exactly the opposite. I'm an auditory learner. I've learned that as a podcaster. I need to hear something and then be able to process it. So there is a funny story that I didn't write about it in Speak Easy, but during that incident with Jasmine, I actually spoke out loud all of the stuff that I read so that at least I heard myself saying it, as opposed to just reading it, because I never would have been able to memorize it. Let me make it clear. I needed podcasts when I was a student at a younger age. I would have been that much better of a student, But I love all of this. And by the way, the purpose of when I came up with this idea for Thrive Loud to do these kind of mashups, to bring these great authors, these great books together, to connect them, because there is some overlap. For obvious reasons, for the name and title alone, let alone the color, although we have different shades of green. This was the first one that came to mind, because when I went through, when I had you on the show and I had the podcast and I did read Easier, which was, I don't always get to read all the books of all the guests that come on. I get like a little skimming, but I read it. I was like, this is genius. And I felt like I was listening to you tell the story, but I also felt like you were telling the story as if I was in a workshop and I was sitting in like a circle of other colleagues hearing these examples and stories, which is, I know, where you thrive. And it was very fun to see that type of messaging put into the literary thing. I actually wanted to ask this question. I never asked it the last time, because it was such a unique position on how you would tell the story in this fable. Did you ever envision it and tell the story or components of it as Easier was developing prior to writing it?
There are many elements from the book that either happened to me or, in other words, in working with the coaches in my life, or through coaching sessions of actual clients that I worked with. There are also pieces and parts, a little poetic license, if you will, to make the story come to life. But yeah, when I first started writing the book, I wrote it in first person. First person is I went on this journey and it's all talking about yourself and everything. And it was from the client's perspective. And I was working with a writing coach as I began this journey. And she said, does that really give us the perspective that we need? Because it's only going to be one perspective if you write in first person. And I thought, you know what? Let me play with that a little bit. Let me see if I can be cinematic. Cinematic. Let me see what happens if I zoom out, and instead of being first person and it's one person's journey, what if I'm able to create an understanding of what's going on, not just with one character and their point of view, but with the various points of view inside the various circumstances. And so from this zooming out, this cinematic kind of approach that I took, the story unfolded in a very different way, and it allowed me to see things and hopefully for the reader to see and experience things inside, not just what the client is going through or what the coach is going through or what the various other people that are, the client's family, the coworkers that the client works with, all these folks. You're able to see sort of an ecosystem. And I wanted to create that for the reader because those observations, not just of one point of view, but of multiple points of view, would inform their own perspective. And at its core, Easier is about finding new possibilities and discovering what it is that we haven't seen. And when life hands us difficult circumstances, whether that's the loss of a loved one or being fired or just working with a challenging person or getting bad service at a restaurant, whatever it is that you're going through, to see how you can show up differently is really at the core of the book. And I wanted to provide every possible angle to allow people to observe that and not to be scolded or guided, but really to just sort of take the journey themselves and see what unfolds for them. That was the spirit of discovery where the book was written from.
Anything different that you would have done in the process from the way you went through Easier, if you had the ability to go back and take a little bit of a time editing thing that you would have done differently in your development of Easier?
I would have taken more time with it. I was on a deadline and coming off of one deadline and into another, and the book had been percolating with me for months. So I think that I would have been curious what might have shown up if I'd have sat with it a little bit longer, which is not to say that the book is rushed or I was just like, look, it's due, so here it is. Blah. But the flip side of that, I would have taken more time with it. The flip side of it is, this book poured out of me.
Yeah.
Lou, I think I've told you this before. It's not just the book I was asked to write. It's the book I needed to write, and a message that, quite frankly, I need to read because this is not just I need to access Easier every day and to step into that place where things become easier and to sit with it has made a tremendous difference for me, not only in the way that I show up, but also in the clients that show up to work with me. It's just been it's been an amazing journey.
Love it.
And that I think has been something that I would not change at all is what this book has been able to create, not just for me and for my business, but also for the people that have read it, because I know that they've been touched. And again, it allows people to draw their own conclusions. You read this book and you keep your hands on the wheel. You are still driving your life. You're not getting some backseat driver going, you know what you need? Here's these 60 things. Think about this. Turn left up ahead. That's me on a bad Uber. Anyway, but it's about observation, possibility, and discovery. And when we see new possibilities, then our conversations can change. Yeah. When life gets difficult is when we go, there's only one way to win. There's only one way that this can shake out. And that's when things get really difficult. And if that's you, if you're hearing me say that, and you're going, man, that's me. It looks like there's only one way out of this. 2 words, zoom out. Take that cinematic perspective. See if you can step back. Like an artist up at the canvas. Step back and see what it is that you've really got going on. It's like the quote from John Wooden, make each day your masterpiece.
Yeah.
Well, how can you do that if you're 6 inches away from the canvas, trying to figure out every nuance in your life? Can you step back? Can you see that you don't have to go it alone? Can you see that there are other resources and people out there that want to help? And that first step in creating that change might be a new perspective.
I like it. Let's do a little admin piece here because we're going to do it in the show notes, but we're going to go through there. First of all, we'll put it everywhere. Let all the listeners know, remind them where they can find Chris Westfall, all the places, URLs, everything.
Sure. It's Westfall Online. My last name is like the direction in the season, westfallonline.com. That's my website. And then on all social media platforms, you can find me, Westfall Online. So that's me on Instagram, that's me on Twitter, that's me on LinkedIn. And just to be different, on Facebook, it's the real Chris Westfall. So that's how that shakes out.
Have you met the not so real Chris Westfall? Have you connected with him?
I have. There are several Chris Westfalls. One of them is a magician. One of them is a country and Western singer who specializes in John Denver covers.
Okay.
And he lives in New Jersey. So put that together. Talk about a mashup. So there are others out there, but accept no substitutes, ladies and gentlemen. Search for the best.
Yes. Or unless you want a Rocky Mountain High or whatever it might be, right?
Exactly.
And now I'll flip this around because we're recording this in the pre-sale of Speak Easy, which launches on September 27th. And we're leading up to this with all these different episodes. Your favorite takeaway or lesson from what you got out of Speak Easy as one of the earlier readers of this book?
The combination of conversation and preparation is at the center of Speak Easy, in my humble opinion. This is a book that gives people an opportunity to get to know some things about you. I mean, I wouldn't say that I learned that you actually worked with Sting, for example, and did some work with Sting in Austin and various other locations and stuff like that. So it's very interesting to learn a little bit about you, but also to have a window into someone who is a professional speaker and a podcaster. So things like show flow and show notes and, what am I going to say on this slide and how am I going to reach the audience? All of those bits and pieces are in there. And I think that the reader will take away some new blocking and tackling to help them feel more confident in their own abilities. But what you keep bringing people back to, and I love this piece, is always the conversation. So that combination of conversation and preparation, and that's the easy part of it. I mean, you want to help people to be at ease so that they can show up and know that they can have that conversation. And sometimes the secret to having a great conversation, you point this out in several different places, is preparation, is to be prepared, is to think things through. But really, when you put your attention on knowing that you can show up and have the conversation that you need, I mean, that for me, that's Speak Easy right there. Mm-hmm. I mean, does that, I don't know if that's what your intention was, but that's what I took away from it.
I think that, and something else that you've shared as well, which is that everybody really appreciates that every conversation is a gift. And that if we go in with the opportunity to speak with any human being, to recognize that every chance you have to have a conversation is an opportunity for you to learn, grow, to connect, engage, and win. And that is at the heart of it. And it's and to let people understand that conversations are happening in different ways that you didn't even think about. Just to explain exactly all the different elements of how we look at a conversation. There are people listening to this podcast who aren't even participating in our conversation, but are gaining something from it. And that's actually was a big realization about the fact that a conversation is content. And there's a gift in that, in just being a fly on the wall or a listener to it. And that's why we love talk shows and panel conversations at conferences and whatnot. We take so much out of it. The dynamic of the conversation creates an energy that is something we really should all appreciate and can grow from. That was one of my big takeaways. And you highlighted that, I know, in many of the stuff. I want to go back to Sting for a second. I'll tell you a funny story because I don't think I've ever shared this on the podcast or anything. So this is like 20 years ago. And Sting was on, as I stated, he was on tour with Compaq Computer back then. And
oh, wow.
The company that I worked for was helping to develop the web presence for it called Organic. They're still around today. They're owned by Omnicom. And we got to tour around with them and yes, Austin and Vegas. And they did the Today. My favorite story with that was the Today Show. You know how they do on Friday mornings in the summer? They have a summer concert series.
Right.
Well, when Sting's album came out, he was lined up, and it was a prime time. It was like June, Friday in New York City, like school's out, tourists are out. This was like ridiculous amount of people. And we all had to be there early. And as part of that team that was working with them, I mean, 4:30 in the morning, we were helping them set up and everything, like dealing with everything in the show. So we're kind of backstage at the Today Show and Sting's getting ready and his PR people are there, all his, his whole entourage or whatever. And there's this, you ever have that moment when you walk into somebody and you can kind of like almost collide with them? Well, he was heading towards the stage early on, like for a little bit of the sound check. And we almost literally crashed into each other. We stopped and he looks at me in his very nice accent. And he goes, "Oh, you're that Diamond guy. I know you." In that wonderful accent. And I'm like, yeah, that's me, the Diamond guy. So yeah, it was a lot of fun dealing with all that, but it was even more fun learning that whole, getting to be in those concert venues and to see what those soundboards were like and how important that is. So that was pretty cool. Anyway, we digress. Listeners can learn more about that later. They could have to get a copy of Speak Easy and learn more about what we're talking about.
Yes.
All right. So to wrap things up here on our very special mashup episode here, aside from the fact that we'll take a cool thing where we'll hold up both books here.
Oh
and
yeah.
mash them together. I was even going to do it physically. I could go like this and just, kind of
I like it.
type of thing.
And I
if in the future,
Mhm.
and I don't know if you did this, did you do the audiobook for Easier? Is there an audiobook?
There is an audiobook, and I did not read it. They hired
You didn't
they
read
hired a
it?
New York actor. Well, and I'm actually glad that they did, because there's so many characters in it.
Yeah, oh, that's true.
You know what I mean? And so to do the various voices, and it's a bit of an emotional journey. There are some places where the book ventures into the deep waters, and I was very glad, because some of the stories are quite personal,
Yeah.
and to be on the mic and have to go through those things myself. I was grateful, actually. And the guy who reads it is spectacular. The audiobook is really, really well done.
I did the voiceover for Speak Easy. I've also
Sure.
done voiceovers for other books, and that's a whole other story. I
Mhm.
have a newfound appreciation of some of the really excellent folks. So I'm gonna have to check out a listen to that, by the way. I have not listened. I've read it. Look at that. I'm the auditory learner, and I'm the one who read it versus listening to it. Go figure. Because I had it in my hands and it was very nice. My whole process of going through that is the hardest thing in the entire world to do, to read your own book.
Really?
It
Why do you say that? What was so hard about it?
I'm going to say this because you and I are both professional speakers,
Right?
and we don't read off of a script. We probably have conversations with the audience. So to
True.
stick to the script and go word for word, it's almost like you don't read it. Your mind knows what you're supposed to say, and you may have said it differently. So to keep on track was very challenging. I've had this conversation with other people who've read their own book. It's like, I thought I was reading it word for word, and then they go, nope, you didn't say that word for word. You moved this word over there. And that happened a couple of times. It was kind of fascinating.
Interesting. Yeah.
A total pleasure. Listeners, go check it out. Here it is. Easier. Chris Westfall, 60 ways to make your life. And look over there. Go check out Speak Easy. All the links will be in our show notes here. There'll be some really cool podcast artwork with a lot of green. We got to show this one more time on our video. Look at all the green in the background there. Just ridiculous. And Chris Westfall, again, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you for coming on the show. Congrats with Easier. And let's get our listeners to know Speak Easier. Right?
Sounds great.
Sounds like an idea.
Sounds like a plan to me. Yeah.
Thanks
for having me.
Oh, always a pleasure to have you, my friend. To all the listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep moving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.